In this video, I want to talk about the income and substitution effects for a price change. Let's suppose that the price of good one falls. We're going to start with an original budget line. We have goods 1 and 2, and we choose this bundle X facing those prices. Then the price of good 1 falls. So that's a pivot out to where this is M over P1 prime, and P1 prime is lower than P1. So that x-intercept is higher. We can afford more of X1 because X1 is cheaper now. Under this new budget constraint, we choose to consume this amount, X prime. So the idea with studying income and substitution effects is that break down the change in income into two parts. We're going to decompose it first into a substitution effect and then into an income effect. The substitution effect is substitution. So the change in demand, especially to X1, because of the change in relative prices. So we're going to hold the purchasing power of the consumer constant and see what will that consumer do considering just the change in relative prices, just the pivot, not shift. Next, we're going to study the income effect. The income effect is the change in demand for X1 because of the change in purchasing power. So we add the shift part. So let's say that the substitution effect will be moving from X to X with an S on it. S for substitution. The idea is we want to pivot the line, but not include the shift. And so what that'll mean is I want a line that has the relative prices of that final budget line. It's what will the consumer do if the relative prices change, but his or her purchasing power does not change? There's a budget line that has the same slope as the final budget line, but it's going to go through this original consumption bundle. So we know that their purchasing power stays constant. Let's suppose that their original indifference curves look like this. And then their indifference curve that they're at afterward looks something like this. Say that their indifference curve over here, let's say that they consume about like this. Put it here. So they have an indifference curve that they're at right there. And this orange thing here is XS. So when their demand goes from X to XS here, that's the substitution effect. What happens to the demand for X1 in the substitution effect? We see originally we're getting this much X1, and then under the substitution effect, we get way more X1. Demand for X1 increases, and the demand for X2 falls. And that makes sense because the change in relative prices. That's what the substitution effect isolates. X1 has gotten a lot cheaper, so we buy more of it, and X2 has gotten more expensive, so we buy less of it. So that's the substitution effect right there. So then, going from XS to X prime summarizes the income effect. The income effect is the change in demand for X, for X1 especially, because of the change in purchasing power. So this is our budget line. We do the shift that represents the increase in purchasing power that the consumer has because of this price change. And so that's the income effect going from XS to X prime here. So this effect right there. Because the price of good one is lower, we are in effect richer. Our purchasing power has gone up. And what do we do with that increase in purchasing power? We get more of X1, those arrows going up and to the right, which indicates we're getting more of X1 and more of X2. Using the fact that we are, in effect, richer to buy more of both.